All right, Brad. He is not Shohei to me anymore. He's no Tani
Yeah.
because he said no to the Giants. Though this is so similar to the Aaron Judge thing last year,
Right.
where you just sort of, as you're reading through the tea leaves, and it sounds like it was really Dodgers or bust the entire time, which is very unfortunate
Yeah.
for us.
Well, you hit the nail on the head the other day when you said it was really the Dodgers signing to screw up at
Yeah.
this point. Because I mean, I honestly, when you look back as us Giants fans, it's always been kind of in the back of our minds that for probably the last 3 years or so, I'd say that once the contract in Anaheim ended, he was going to be a Dodger. I mean, we had a little pipe dreams here and there of, oh, maybe he comes to the Giants. We are not that organization yet. Someday we hope to be, obviously. We hope to get there. Um, I think we're on the right track. We're making strides, but you still have to have those big signings. And we thought, well, maybe this could springboard us. But I think our number one is still Yamamoto. I think that's probably the Giants' number one. But this contract, when we get into this contract, it's going to throw things into perspective where we might look at it and say, oh, Yamamoto has a clear opening to go to Los Angeles at this point. So,
Yes. So why don't we revisit the Ohtani situation here? I guess this is from a Giants fan perspective, obviously. So I he was my favorite non-Giant in quite a long time,
yeah.
and this is I'm not going to be able to root for him anymore. So that's a bummer for me. I'm pretty bummed out about that, but it's sports. It's what happens. The sports gods and sports world aren't there simply for you and I to be happy. In fact, quite the opposite
Yes.
sometimes.
But
But
they have a way of evening things out, though.
yes,
So,
yes. Let's start from, I guess, when we would have stopped recording last week, because we did a segment which was, are the Giants still in the chase? And at this point, whether they came in third or second, whether the Blue Jays were for real, like all of that stuff doesn't really matter when you don't get the guy. And like we
right.
said, we believe that it was probably the Dodgers first and foremost. And we thought about that last year and the year before, like when we knew that he was going to be a free agent. So let's start it there, because I think the first thing, or the first sign of anything, as far as when things started moving, was Dave Roberts kind of maybe speaking out of turn and not knowing he was speaking out of turn.
Yeah.
And talking about the meeting with Ohtani and such, and all of these teams were sworn to secrecy, and you got to play the Ohtani game in order to, and it was all pretty silly, I thought, considering this is professional sports. He does come from a different culture. I respect that, but really, it's like this is what sports is about. So it was kind of funny. We were joking about it. We were like, "Oh, I wonder if Dave Roberts screwed their chances." But that was kind of the first thing, and then we're playing this waiting game where. Do you think beat writers got snookered purposely here with the Toronto Blue Jays story and the private jet that went out, and the secret dinner that was being planned for, all that stuff? Like, because there was
Yeah.
a lot of detailed information that went into the Toronto story. What do you think happened there?
I don't know. I personally, I need more information. I need to see more because all I've seen so far are guesstimates of what happened in that whole thing, how it all went down. Um, the fact that uh, Morosi was given some bum information, he ran with it. Nobody else had that information. And then, you know, the correct information that Ohtani was at home in Los Angeles was given to all the other reporters. I mean, the whole thing kind of seems weird at this point. Um, I think somebody just happened to see, because you could be pretty savvy nowadays just as a normal user. You don't have to be a reporter or whatnot, but you can go on. There's apps that show private jets that fly in and out of airports, and you can track those jets. You don't necessarily know who's on them, but there was one that was leaving for Los Angeles and going to Toronto, or Orange County and going to Toronto. So I think somebody kind of took that and ran with it, and a bunch of other people did. And I'm wondering if Morosi just took that and said, "He's on his way. I'm going to start asking around." And with everybody being so tight-lipped around this, maybe he took that as okay, that's him on the plane then, and they're
Yeah.
heading to Toronto. Extremely convenient for Ohtani's camp that word got out, because that could have driven up the price by the Los Angeles Dodgers at that point. I still think the extra 100 million is because of what's going on with his contract, as the word came out today of how the contract breaks down.
Yeah,
But,
well, we'll
you know,
talk about that
yeah, absolutely.
in a good amount of detail because I definitely have some thoughts about that.
Oh, for sure. But still, I think that could have also driven up the price. The fact that, hey, he's on a plane and he's on his way to Toronto, and word is that really worried the Dodger brass that morning, and then into Friday afternoon, Friday evening, they really started kind of freaking out and said, "Are we losing him? We need to do something and you know give him the moon and give him whatever he wants, and let's go with this." Um, I think a lot of the hesitation from most organizations who are in this was probably the contract and the contract breakdown and how it all works out, because it's a weird one. It's good, but it's bad. I mean, there's aspects to it that are bad, but there's aspects to it. If you're an organization, this is fantastic. Gives you a lot of wiggle room. But yeah, I don't know. I
They
mean, the
already
whole
have the wiggle room, though. That's my
I,
point.
they
What
have
the
the
only thing they're
wiggle.
trying to get they just don't want to pay the collective bargaining tax.
Sure,
It's circumvention of the bargaining tax.
they don't want to pay it for the next 10 years, and they're not going to have to for the next 10 years. The way they've got, I mean, we were looking at it in the way they've got it in Freeman and Betts, and I'm not sure who else has deferred money on that team, but holy moly, they're paying Betts and Freeman well into my 70s. I'm going to be 70 when these guys are still getting paid. Can you imagine that?
So these are the discussions that I was having, and we'll just talk about the contract for
Yeah,
a
yeah.
second here because I was telling people, I was saying, I don't know why you would want to sign with the Dodgers because the way that they do business and the way that they sign these large contracts is that they defer the money. And what happens when they defer the money is they basically take the money that they were going to pay you for that year and they push it into the future, which makes the money less valuable, by the way. And so essentially, Shohei is giving them a $68 million loan interest free. And they don't and when they pay him in 10 years, that $68 million without inflation is much less than what it would be had he been given the money today and then he can invest it any way that he wants. He's
Right.
losing money in this scenario, and the corporation that could probably go to the market and sell for $10 billion is getting the deal here, which is why
Yeah.
I don't like it. But okay, so let's go back to the Toronto thing. Now, I have a couple of Blue Jay fan buddies in a Discord for my Fight Game Media podcast stuff. So we have our BSPN Discord. I have a Fight Game Media Discord as well, and two guys specifically who are just diehard Blue Jay guys. They were living the life when these rumors were happening, and
Oh, I
I was
bet. Yeah.
saying. And I was a little bummed because, like, okay, so the Giants aren't even in second place here if the Blue Jays are getting all this love. And so I was saying, I hope that this is true because I would never want another team except for the Dodgers and their fan base. I would never want them to get arson judged like we did, right?
Yeah.
That was
That was a bad
hell.
feeling. That was a bad feeling.
That was hell. And then when the Correa thing didn't happen, it was like we just got punched in the face 2 times instead of
Yeah,
1
yeah,
time.
yeah.
So, as that stuff started to break down, I just felt so bad for my friends, and then worse is that it's the Dodgers, and it's the one team that I did not want to see him go to just because I like him as a player. It's like,
Yeah.
if you're a basketball fan and you're a Warriors fan, the Warriors don't like the Lakers. And if Klay Thompson, he's from Southern California, I would be very hurt if Klay Thompson went to go play for the Lakers because I
Yeah.
despise that franchise. So it's kind of the same thing. Like Shohei, I rooted for him as just the greatest player that we've seen in quite some time. And now he just is evil, and that's just the way that we look at all Dodgers players, right? And
Yeah.
so
We don't,
Dave,
and that being said, we don't want him. I see all this, I hope he gets hurt and I hope this. We don't want any of that. We want to see him struggle
yes.
for 162 games, struggle, because that would be 1,000 times more satisfying.
I usually wish gout on my least
That's
favorite players, right?
That's a good one.
And
Yeah. Or some sort of hangnail that just never goes away.
And I've jokingly, because this cannot actually happen in any way, I was joking that he had testicular Tommy John surgery.
Well, where do you take the ligament from on that? That's the question.
And not only and in both sides, like so.
Yeah. Well, of course you can't have one.
But obviously it's stupid. It's a stupid joke because that can't physically exist. But it's kind of like that thing where you're just like, man, I don't want to wish real injury on anybody because that just makes me a bad person. But if I can wish fake injuries, then that's where I'm going. So Davis, our guy Davis said, this is LeBron in Miami. Evil Shohei is on the way. Here's where I disagree on the LeBron thing. The LeBron thing, and very similarly, LeBron was the top free agent in basketball. The Cleveland fans really wanted him to desperately stay. So LeBron creates this event that ESPN decides to host, and he doesn't tell any of the teams what's going on, and he announces it live on this television show. I'm going to take my talents to South Beach. And he says this on television. And a lot of fans were mad because he did not tell the teams before he made the decision. Well, the reason why he didn't tell the teams is because he didn't want any of that information leaked out as he was doing this television show, which the money that he was making from this television show, he was giving away to the Boys and Girls Club of X, Y, and Z. That was kind of the whole reason for the show. Now, it was also to get him on TV as the biggest star in basketball and all the things that come with that. But that's why this is a little bit different because, Shohei going to the Dodgers, for us, they're the evil team. For the Red Sox and the Yankees, they probably don't care. If they didn't get him, might as well stay in the National League. So it's a little bit different in that extent. But the whole thing about how this signing came about really did bother me because, again, it's like one of those things, and this isn't this is the story from Giants fan side. So we're a little bitter right now because our rival just got the greatest baseball player of the last 20 years,
and we're allowed to be.
Yes, we are. So it breaks down that it's funny. Shams Charania, who's an NBA newsbreaker, breaks the news on my Twitter feed. And I think he got the news basically just checking Shohei's Instagram feed the fastest. I think that's how he got the news
at the right time.
Or he was just like, he had all the things moving, like refreshing constantly. Like,
wow.
And he got it. So then you see that he signs the Dodgers and it's 10 years, $700 million. All of the memes and all of these sports business websites and these Instagram accounts were like doing like, oh, 700 million. He makes more money than all of these teams' payrolls and blah, 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 blah. And I was screaming at my phone reading this going like, he's not making 700 million in 10 years. They're deferring a lot of this money. Like I immediately said that because that's just the way that they do business.
Yeah.
And so we had to sit with this for a little while, and every Giants fan is writing up, oh, here's here's the next steps to what do we do now? And I'll actually read Grant's because Grant's is really good and he has a good idea. And I think Mark DeLucci as well had the same idea, which is really to pivot to pitching. And so all the stuff is happening. I'm just pissed, and I just hate all of these accounts because they obviously don't know what they're talking about. And then just today comes out, who had it? Was it Morosi who had it first, or was it who's the USA Today guy? Nightingale? Did he have it first?
Yeah. I honestly don't even know because I got it from you guys.
So
I was cleaning the house and I got a text from you guys that things were happening.
So turns out that not only is the money deferred, but like 96% of the money is deferred. Right. Now, this is just according to what we know. Obviously, we don't have access to these books, so who knows? Maybe the story will change tomorrow. But the tweet that we saw was that 68 out of the $70 million, and now this is his average annual value of the contract. We don't know. It could be he made 40 million in the first 3 years and then 100 million in the last 3, whatever that number is. The AAV was 70 for 10 years. So we learned that 68 of the 70 million is getting deferred. So the Dodgers are only paying him $2 million for the seasons. And I guess because of the accounting and because of the way that they do the books, the AAV of the contract based on the deferment comes out to less than $50 million or something. So that is the story today. And here's why it bothers me, because I knew it. The second I saw the Bleacher Report the Bleacher Report article, there was an excuse. Why are the Dodgers deferring all of this man's money? And not only is there an excuse, there is the line from the Dodgers is Shohei came to them with this idea of deferment. So it's like, this guy, he's not about the money. He's just
well, the report that's out there right now too is that they went to every team with this offer. Every team that they talked to, they gave this same offer to. So everybody had this opportunity to do that. And that was now that's being reported by Talkin' Baseball, John Boy Media.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a legit source, but I'm sure we'll find out more in the coming days. Stay glued to The Athletic if you have a subscription, because I fired up my Kindle last night. My Kindle, my whatever, I don't know what it's called now anymore, but the big Kindle tablet. But I got it all ready, and now I have bookmarked The Athletic on there because I don't have an iPad. That old iPads, you can't get The Athletic app on anymore.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre. So I have to buy a new one. I'm not going to spend $500-600 when I have this like $80 tablet that I can get it on the web. So the fact that they brought it to every team, is that truth? I mean, is that going to be something that we find out as truth, or is that going to be just another spin job by Nez, his fantastic agent who's getting them this great deal?
Okay, so here's the line. The reasoning is so the Dodgers can continue adding to their roster with the hopes of competing for championships in the immediate future. There are so many things wrong with that sentence. How many years in a row have the Dodgers won the West?
Oh God,
it's got to be like
8,
12
9
or something.
I mean,
yeah, the Giants won it in 2012. I remember that.
Well, 2021. Remember 107 wins and they had 106 wins.
There you go.
So they haven't won it in a row. We've taken it that one time, but going back to like 2016, probably 2015, maybe. I think that was the only time that we took the West.
So essentially they've been competing this entire time. So
yes. Yeah.
F you on that part of the statement.
Exactly.
They can continue adding to their roster. They signed Mookie Betts. They signed Freddie Freeman. They re-signed Kershaw every single year. None of that impeded their process to sign Shohei Ohtani. So if the money was deferred or not, they were going to continue adding to the roster. You know why? Because they make a lot of money being the Los Angeles Dodgers. They would not have stopped if Shohei deferred half instead. It's not like the Dodgers are like, sorry guys, we just cannot afford another. Everyone, last 2 weeks, this is your paycheck, and we're bankrupt. We're done.
Yeah.
So that kind of statement and that spin, and I hate it when people publish it because it's like, and I know they're just getting information up there, and this is where we're going with AI anyways, and Sports Illustrated hires AI writers and creates fake avatars of people.
Well, they don't even have to hire them. They don't have to pay them a dime.
Exactly. So I just find this whole thing of, oh, it's Shohei's idea here. Look at the now. If you're a baseball player, if you are let's say Juan Soto. Okay, Juan Soto's a free agent after this season. The Yankees just traded for him. Great player. We've been talking about Juan Soto for a long time on this show, just because he would be the kind of guy the Giants would spend over the top for. Ohtani as well. Yeah. Like, those are kind of the two guys. And if you're Juan Soto, and if you don't defer your money in your next contract, you are not being a team player. You are not helping the organization add on to their roster so that they could compete for future championships. How BS is that statement? Like, if I am the Players Association, for one, I'm like, God, glad that Shohei, that number, that 10 for 70 is what people are going to think of all the time. But at the same time, they're going to be like, well, now is this where all these, the best player in the game, the guy with the most leverage, gave up a lot of that leverage to sign with this baseball team. Does that mean that the next free agents, that is expected? And that's what these teams are going to hold them accountable to, is you now need to defer some of this because so that you can help us get under this collective bargaining tax. Like, and then on the other side, if you're the owners, because I had this conversation in the same Discord, which was, I was like, if you're the owners, are you happy about this? And is there going to be any rushes to kind of amend the collective bargaining agreement in any way? And then I think it was who had the statement? It was Jeff Passan. He said, for anyone wondering if MLB will challenge or cancel Tani's contract, the answer is unequivocally no. There's a specific article in the collective bargaining agreement that addresses this. It's very clear. Deferred money is limitless. And to that, I say, yeah, on a wink, wink, nudge, nudge deal where the owners are like, hey, guys, we'll keep this in here if we need it. And then the Dodgers are like, well, we're going to take this to the limit and see what happens.
Yeah,
the owners are like,
which is no limit.
Dude, why didn't you just give them $1 billion and just reset the market in that way? Like, I can't imagine you're the I'm not even going to say a team that's not even trying to compete, so I won't say the A's. I'm trying to think of a small market. You're the Twins. Pirates. Twins are Pirates. They both had pretty darn good seasons. Twins better than the Pirates. But if you're like, all of a sudden the new way of doing business is to give so much money, and so much of it is in deferment, and some of these owners aren't as rich as others, and I can't imagine they're like, yep, I like where this thing is going, because it just hurts them, and it helps teams like the Dodgers. It helps the destination places, Dodgers, Yankees, Red Sox. The Giants are not there right now, unfortunately. And I also said this to a buddy. I was like, look, if that was the Giants doing this, I would go, man, that is savage. And then I would go, but I can't. I have to just root. This is my squad. And so I don't blame Dodger fans for looking at it at that way at all. Like, that's all you got. This is the business. This is just how sports business works, and nothing that we can control outside of, maybe not paying as much money or whatever for our tickets. But no one does that. That's why sports, especially in a market where you have a loyal fan base, like, that's why it's so valuable, because fans aren't going to give up on stuff like this. And most of them are unlike us and aren't even going to pay attention to this stuff that closely. So,
right.
But yeah, that whole thing, that conversation frustrated me because the piece is coming. I don't know if Bags is going to write it, because I saw some tweets by Bags today going like, "Wait, hold up, this is like quite the scheme." Uh,
Yeah.
but somebody's going to write it, and somebody's going to write it from the other side, which is, hey, the Dodgers are light years away. This is what the Warriors did when they got KD. The reason why the Warriors were able to get Kevin Durant is because the the cap was going up because of the new TV deal. And what the owners could have done, or I'm sorry, I think the players could have done, is they could have done something called smoothing, where they take all of that new money and they kind of spread it across the future years. And the
Mhm.
players were like, no, let's just bring it in now. And so the cap raised up for the Warriors to a point where they could actually bring in another top talent. And that's how they got Kevin Durant. So somebody's going to write the article that says, look, the Dodgers are just taking advantage of what is already there. And so I get that too. But this is at the expense of maybe an athlete who is not like, what if Shohei, what if Shohei gets hurt and the Dodgers kind of lose out on this thing? Like that would
Right.
be like the only way that owners would be like, okay, we're not doing this anymore. Now, I don't want to wish that on him,
Right, right.
for
But
reals,
it's
at
part of
least.
the game. That's the
Right.
thing is it is part of the game. It's a reality. It could happen. I mean, that, this whole thing, and Denise asked me the same thing because I got home and I guess I warmed up on our conversation by telling her all about it. And she's like, well, as a Giants fan, if the Giants did that, how would you feel? And
Yeah.
I said, well, of course I'd look at it and say, this is great for us because now we can also get Yamamoto. Now we can also get Bellinger. I mean, and then we can defer money that way as well. Um, but then I would say, then if we went on to win 3 World Series titles, you'd be like, that's great because we kind of, fudged around the cap and everything. But it will never compare to 2010, 12, and 14,
Yeah.
which was done by bringing up the youth, the pitching, little bit of hitting, Buster Posey. When you look at Brandon Crawford, you look at Brandon Belt, you look at those types of players. The Giants kind of did it from within. Is that a thing anymore? Yeah, sure, absolutely. Arizona's doing it. A bunch of other teams are doing it as well. Texas Rangers went out and bought a bunch of players, but they also had some good youth players in there. The thing is, you have to have an ownership that will sign off on doing something like this. Um, Again, you do have to pay later. You've got to pay that $68 million. Can you rework the contract when that comes about? I would assume. I mean, it's still a contract. You can rework that contract if you want to and say, okay, now we talk to Ohtani and we're going to do it for another 10 years, even though he's not here. He's getting 2 million a year. And then in 10 years, because he doesn't need the money, maybe he doesn't need the money at the time. He's getting 50 million, close to 50 million in endorsements every year. And that's going to go up because now he's a Dodger. I was going to say now because he's in LA, but he's been in the LA area for a long time. But you can't market the Angels the way you can market the Dodgers. It's a little bit different. So yeah, you have to have ownership. I don't see Giants ownership signing off on something like that. It kind of feels like Giants ownership likes to clear the books. They don't like to have things hanging on the books for this long anymore. Back in the day, yes, when you were signing Belt, Posey, Crawford, all these guys, Bumgarner, Lincecum to extensions, it was different. It was a different feel. It was a different time. These were extensions for young players that you were getting for market value or under market value. You were hanging on to those guys for a very long time. Well, I shouldn't say Lincecum because he always liked his year-to-year
Yeah,
deal.
he liked those
Yeah,
short deals.
but when you look at it now, this ownership, Charles Johnson and family, they kind of lean a little bit more towards clearing the books. Let's keep things clean. I don't see them as the type of ownership that says, instead of a 10-year deal, let's make it an essential a 20-year deal, because that's what you've done with Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Shohei Ohtani. And again, I don't know the Dodgers contract situation that well, but I know just from looking today, those 3 players are going to be paid for like the next 17 to 20 years. So again, will a Pirates organization want to do that? The Rays, no. The Red Sox, no. The Yankees, maybe Cashman starts looking at that. But again, the option's been there. It's been there for years. People have been doing it for years. And nobody else is doing it to the extent that the Dodgers are. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, if they're able to lock up Yamamoto, if they're able to lock up Chapman, if they're able to lock up all these other players that they want to just keep adding on, it's going to get extremely frustrating for every other team of Major League Baseball. Again, we're still going to continue to watch. We're going to root on the Giants, but there's always going to be this black cloud of the competition. What is the competition going to be like going forward for the next 5 or 6 years if there are certain teams that can do these deals and are willing to do these deals because they're in that type of market? I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see.
So where do we go from here? Now, based on what we believed, which is, the Giants had kind of an outside shot at Ohtani more than anything else.
Yeah.
Their plan B was probably really their plan A. So where does that go? And everything that we believe probably starts with Yamamoto. Now, does Yamamoto's watching what Shohei signed for, I imagine that is probably really good for his market. Now you have these teams who are looking for that big splash, Giants being one of them. And, are the Giants willing to fork over whatever it takes, 300 million or 280 million, whatever it is, to sign a pitcher, which in the Farhan era has not been the case. Logan Webb, the contract that he got, it's like the longest contract that they've ever given. And I think to starting pitcher previously, I think it was DeSclafani, right? Didn't he get like a 3-year deal?
Under this regime, yeah.
And look how poorly that has worked so far. But Gossman, they let him go, and he's been a Cy Young candidate for the last couple years. Rodon worked out in their favor by not signing him. He had a struggle last year with the injury. So, it's really that kind of, it seems like it's about a 50-50 or so with the pitching deals so far. And that's a big risk going into it 50-50 with a young 25-year-old, who you don't know the wear and tear on the arm quite yet. But it seems like it starts and ends there. Now, if the Giants get him, I think the fan base will be fired up.
Mm-hmm.
But what if they don't get him? Do you just get, like, are fans going to give up on this offseason if they don't get Yamamoto?
That's a tough one, because I didn't know how I was going to feel when we eventually didn't get Shohei. Because, I mean, obviously 90% of me knew we weren't going to get him. 10% had that pipe dream of, maybe in the back of my mind it might happen. What if it did happen? But I think with Yamamoto, I'm more like 60%, 55% that we're going to get him, 45% we're not going to get him. So I'm kind of down the middle on that one. That one's going to absolutely be more disappointing. Only because we as Giants fans have a track record of pitching and watching fantastic pitching in that ballpark. We know we can win with pitching.
I mean, it's how they won 3 World Series with that blueprint.
And so we look at that and we say pitching. You can go out there and you can say, hey, we're going to get this guy who hit 30 home runs last year. Okay, cool. He's going to come to Oracle and he's going to hit 20.
And he's going to end up playing cards in the clubhouse.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he'll have great exit velocity. But that year that he's on an $18 million contract, qualifying offer contract, it's not going to go well.
Jock, you gotta love him.
Yeah, poor Jock. So I mean, if they went Yamamoto and then they added Snell, I'd be happy. I know everybody, oh, Snell, he just won a Cy Young award. I mean, the guy pitches fantastic.
Yeah.
And then with our bullpen, as strong as it can be at times, and then you can have guys that are inning eaters like Yamamoto and Webb and Cobb to keep that bullpen fresh. You can have a guy like Snell who goes 6 innings,
Yeah.
6 plus, But if we don't get Yamamoto, you have to start to kind of look and say, all right, how do we make this a successful offseason? Is it going to be Chapman? Is it going to be Snell and Chapman? Is it going to be Chapman and Stroman? Chapman and Stroman is going to be a really tough sell to the fan base.
Where are you with Bellinger?
I would be more than happy with Bellinger. I don't mention him a whole lot because I haven't heard a whole lot of meetings or anything else really going on at this point with Bellinger.
Especially if they're looking at like a 10-year contract.
Yeah, if they're looking at a 10-year deal, although, I mean, he's still 28 years old. He's not an old guy. He's still in that youth where he had a fantastic turnaround season, found something. If you can have that offense for like the next 5 or 6 years on a 10-year deal, I think that's great. If he can continue to play a good center field as well, a stellar center field. I mean, he's a great fielder. So if you went Bellinger, Snell, or even if you went Bellinger, Stroman, I like Stroman. I know people don't. He's an innings eater though, so I like him.
Yeah, he's like, I mean, he's Logan Webb and a few years older. Like that's how it is.
And I mean, if you went Chapman and Bellinger, you've shored up a lot of defense there. Center field is taken care of. Luciano at short, going to keep working with him on his defense. Tyro was in the talks for a Gold Glove, so he, even though he wasn't in the final 3, he was still kind of mentioned towards the end of the season because he had such a great boost at second base. And then you got Patrick Bailey. So you've got the middle of the diamond kind of shored up there. And then Chapman at third. Lamont Wade Jr. has been doing a decent job at first base. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'd be happy with it. The fan base would not. The majority of the fan base would not be happy with something like that. So you've got to make a splash. You've got to get people to come to San Francisco. You got Carlos Correa to come to San Francisco last year, technically. So what's to say you can't get other players to come to San Francisco? There's got to be that one domino that gets knocked over that starts the line, because again, Juan Soto is going to be there next year. But if the Dodgers are deferring money to get the best players, you've got to compete with that. So you have to start now. You can't say, well, we missed out this year, but we're looking at Soto next year. No, we've been through Judge. We've been through Correa. We've been through Shohei. I don't want to go through Yamamoto. I don't want to go through Bellinger. And then all of a sudden we're having to do this again with Juan Soto. And we did it with Bryce Harper. We did it with Giancarlo Stanton. I mean, we've done it with so many players right now. So that splash, it just absolutely, it feels like desperation. And it probably is. And that's kind of how I see the whole Shohei thing with the deferred money, and the Dodgers were going to do whatever they could to get him. They are honestly, even though they're winning, and I looked it up, they won 10 out of the last 11 National League West titles. They won in 2013, 14. They won in 2014 when we won the World Series. They are in desperation mode. They have not had a legit World Series title since 1988. So they are, this is desperation mode in terms of they had to get Shohei because this is win now. I mean, Mookie Betts is getting older. Freddie Freeman's getting older. Clayton Kershaw he's got a walker. He's coming in. He's going to kind of scoot his way in on his walker next season. I mean, these guys are getting older. They have to win at least one title, and getting Shohei doesn't guarantee it, but it gets them a lot closer. So that was kind of a desperation. We have to get him no matter what.
Okay. So just, the Grant Brisbee piece that he just wrote today, he ranked the pitchers in order that he would want, ranking the top starters to get them one. He had it. He started at number 8, Tyler Glasnow, and the only problem with Glasnow is 21 starts and 120 innings are his career highs for a season. So that he would be actually the right-handed lesser version of Blake Snell when it came to how dependable he is. On the number 7 was Jordan Montgomery. He called him Anthony DeSclafani in the good years, which is kind of well. I mean, we like Disco in the good years.
We did, man. I mean, did he really have one good full season? I guess, yeah. His first season with us.
But he's also made 30 plus starts in each of the last 3 seasons.
Yeah.
Mitch Keller at number 6, and he said, "Is Mitch Keller really on the block?" They said no, one of the blogs, and he said, maybe not, but if you could get him, it would be a good idea. But he believes that the Pirates would ask for Kyle Harrison and the Giants would decline.
Right.
Dylan Cease would be number 5 on the list. And he had Shota Imanaga number 4, and I've not heard that name actually quite yet. I guess a left-hander from Japan who did very well in the WBC, and I guess he's available. I haven't seen any information about him. This is the first sighting of Imanaga's name as far as any of these lists that I've seen so far.
I do remember that he posted a couple weeks ago, but that's all I remember.
He said he would be the 1B to another pitcher's 1A. Number 3 would be Snell, who you already talked about. It would be interesting how the Giants would kind of strategically. Would you use an opener with Blake Snell and get him into the 7th and then turn it over to the bullpen? That would be kind of interesting.
I don't. Personally, I'm done.
Anti-opener.
Maybe we got punched in the face with it so much last year.
Well, I mean, we had it's like 2 or 3 openers every 5 starts. It's like, come on.
I'm awfully tired. I love Ryan Walker, but I don't want to see him open another ball game. I want to see him pitch the 7th or 8th inning.
Number 2, Corbin Burns. He said the red flag is the strikeout rate has been dropping in recent seasons. And because he's still a year away from free agency, the Brewers will still want a lot for him. So he would be a trade piece, but he believes that the key would be you're signing Burns, but you're not really burning a lot of cash by doing it because he still has not yet hit free agency. So he'd kind of be like a rental, and then you could go after offense and sign some big checks that way. So that would be the strategy. But obviously, number 1, Yamamoto. He said, Grant wrote, "Again, my strongly worded suggestion is to get Yamamoto and someone like Burns, load up on the starters, and hope that Marco Luciano and or Luis Matos or others breaks out. Don't come back with Marcus Stroman and pretend that he's the ace they're looking for. Like Montgomery, he's a better fit for a team that needs quantity of quality, not a team that needs shut down starters. Considering that it was obvious Ohtani wasn't coming, I would be more despondent if the Giants whiffed on Yamamoto." So there you go. That's what Grant Brisbee wants for the Giants. And I mean,
I like that list.
I definitely get it. I definitely get the strategy.
Yeah.
But man, if we are rolling Austin Slater and Baby Yaz and Matos out there in the outfield next year, that is going to be a rough one.
So you're saying if we have the same lineup as last year, minus Jock Peterson and plus Matt Chapman, it may not be as fun.
I mean, the team would probably be better, but I don't know if the fans would necessarily come out for it more so than they already do.
Yeah, it's tough because we're talking about now almost, well, and not almost. I mean, the beginning of next season, it's going to be 10 years removed from our last World Series title.
Yep.
So you're talking about kids who were 10 years old then, who are now 20 and going to the ballpark, and they don't.
Yeah.
Do they care about pitching? Do they care about, mowing batters down like we care about? I probably not.
Well, I
Kids
think
kids dig the long ball, right?
I think it would be, you would they would have to win, because I think in
Yeah, yeah.
2021 those same young people kind of talked themselves into, because the Giants were actually competing with the Dodgers. They were
Mhm.
beating the Dodgers. And so when you beat the Dodgers in the regular season, that tells the fans, like, okay, this team is actually for real. Because what usually happens with the Dodgers, usually beat the Giants up and down, left and right. But the Giants played the Dodgers pretty well last year.
Yeah.
So that, I think that was key. But also, we were talking ourselves into the idea that, okay, like, maybe this is the way to go. But in the back of our minds, we were like, man, this season feels really fluky to us. But
Yeah, it
you got
felt
to roll
weird.
with it, because it's just the way that it's working. And maybe Farhan and Gabe are like secret geniuses, and this
Yeah.
is the way baseball moves. And then it was the one season. So yeah, I think the whole key is, uh, I think I don't even know if Bellinger obviously would bring the folks to the yard. I don't know if he's even a big enough name. Like, he's a good player and he had a really good season, but if the Cubs lose him, are Cubs fans going like, man, we just lost, the greatest outfielder since Sammy Sosa. What are we gonna do? Like, are they
That's
like,
yeah. That's gonna be one of those players that maybe in 2 or 3 years they're gonna say, "Oh man, we should have locked him up for a while because he's been, you know, a 30 plus home run guy for like 3 years in a row now, and he's still got 7 years left on his deal, but he's not slowing down. He's still hitting 300." Because that's the beauty of Bellinger. He's fast. He can steal you some bases. He's not how he used to be, but he can hit you 30 home runs, and he's going to hit 300 or close to 300. Is what he can also do. So, but again, you stick him in our lineup, and you got to protect him. So that's the hard
s-
part.
so my thesis is much what Davis is mentioning here, though. I think Yamamoto, if he is special, this is a fan base that had Lincecum Day, and Bumgarner starts were important days to get out to the park. So if Yamamoto is the real deal, I think he could be a draw for the fan base. And the other part of it is putting on an exciting team rather than the boring station to station baseball that they've been playing, with lackadaisical fielding and little to no speed. I do think improving the quality of product on the field is also part of the deal that they need to do. So, but
Yeah.
I think if Yamamoto is the goods, that would be a really good draw for the fan base.
Yeah, I think so too. Don't forget Rally Zito.
Rally Zito,
Rally Zito and Rally Enchiladas.
Rally enchiladas. Okay, so this was just one of those days. I knew we were talking about Shohei. Jack and Coke Zero right out of the can. I didn't even pour it into a glass. This is how I had to had to imbibe this beverage, because I was just like, you know what?
Yeah, just
Our our frustration has to come out. I got to go straight out of the can.
down the hatch.
So for Thanksgiving, I bought like 2 4-packs of these, but I bought the wrong one. I bought the regular Coke and not the Coke Zero.
Oh, yeah.
So I had to give them away, but
Yeah,
someone
I
was
couldn't.
someone liked it. So
I
one of
think
our
my
guests,
body would go into shock if I had that much sugar now.
yeah,
I
yeah.
have a hard time with that. I finally got to Total Wine, and I ended up getting this for $1 a can because they had a special going on at Total Wine. So I got my 14.9 ounce cans, my 8-pack of Guinness, one of my favorite. I can't even get this darn thing. I gotta put it in front of my face. There we go. Guinness Draft Stout. So when you pop the can, you get the little nitro ball in there that pops. I'm almost done too, but um, but it's only 4%, so it's a good easy drinker. And just, I like to go from Corona Lights for my light beer to Guinness for my light beer. And it's funny to call this a light beer, even though it's super dark, but it's only 4%. So down a couple of those with no problem.
All right, let's end the show by talking about some of the Christmas fare we've been watching of late. Now, I've made a deal with my wife. She has to go through her lineup of Christmas movies. She has, Love Actually and Christmas Vacation, and she's got to watch every version of the Santa Claus. And it's like she's just got to get through them before the 25th. And like I did that with her a few years ago, and I was like, okay, I'll watch all these movies with you. But I'm like, okay, I'm done. Why are we gonna watch them again? But she's got to watch them again. So I'm like, okay, here's what I'll do. If there's a new Christmas movie that is out, I will watch that with you. But if it's just something that we've seen within the last couple of years, you're on your own with that. So I don't know if you know this. I'm sure you do because you have all the streaming services as well.
Yeah.
There is a boatload of Christmas movies out with recognizable stars that are really bad.
Yes.
And they're just...
Are you talking about Ludacris?
Well, Luda's one of them that we're going to talk about.
I'm not touching that movie, man. I have not. I put it on my list and I watched the preview and I went, I don't think so.
So the smartness of that movie is they have a delightful child actress in the movie who really makes the movie. And I don't know if you're a big fan of Lil Rel, but I like Lil Rel. Lil Rel's pretty charming to me, so I like him. Yeah, Ludacris is not Ludacris is not the best actor. I mean, he could do his stuff with Tyrese and Fast and Furious where they slap each other on the back of the head, but the leading man is not really his game right now. But that movie, which is called Dashing Through the Snow, and Crystal and I finally finished watching it. She was like, they could have named that movie any lyric from a Christmas song, and it would have been the same because there had nothing to do with dashing through the snow in the entire movie, and it was called Dashing Through Snow. And I was like, yeah, I agree. We also watched the Candy Cane Lane movie, the Amazon movie with Eddie Murphy.
Yes.
And Tracy Ellis Ross. And the young man who was in Creed 3, he played the younger version of Adonis Creed. He was in it as well. I didn't recognize. I don't think I recognized anybody else. But except there were some other actors that you would recognize in smaller parts. But I'm talking about the main part. Ron Swanson's in that movie. The Chris Redd from Saturday Night Live, he's in it. They have smaller parts. And am I better for watching these two Christmas movies? No. Were they like, because it was either, watch this Christmas movie or we're watching like 4 episodes of Community, right? So that's what I'm giving up. That's how I look at it. Community's fine. Community's totally fine, though. Sure. Those late 2000s, early 2010 comedies, like even only 15 years later, you're like, how did they do that show? Like some of the humor is a little would not work in 2023.
Not anymore.
So for that reason, I'm like, it's fine. Community will be there for us after Christmas is over. So Candy Cane Lane, I told my wife, I said, look, Eddie Murphy smiles and I laugh. So I'm in. I'm in. Like no matter what. Like I've been entertained by some of the worst Eddie Murphy movies of all time just because I like him so much and I find him very charming. So this is going to be about you, like whether or not you like this movie. Because I'm just going to tell you, Ed's in it. I'm going to like it. I'm going to be totally fine. The thing about these Christmas movies is because of Christmas and because of the fantasy of Christmas and the magic of Christmas, there's special effects in these movies. But when you got to pay Eddie Murphy to do a Christmas movie, you don't have much of a budget for special effects, and they're really bad. It's like I remember my kid was like a freshman in high school, and he did some graphic on probably using like Adobe After Effects or something. I was like, whoa, that's really cool. right? He's like his friend like disappeared or something. I was, oh, that's cool. And then I watched this Candy Cane Lane movie, and it's like kind of reminded me of the Adobe After Effects special effects that
Yes.
Brian did in high school 10 years ago. So that's what you're gonna get. Same with Dashing Through the Snow. Just the graphics are really bad. Now, both movies, as far as plot, pretty thin. You know, if Eddie Murphy doesn't do a few different tasks that he's supposed to do, he turns into like a figurine. Like that's really the plot
Right.
of the movie. And in Dashing Through the Snow, it's like Ludacris has to believe in Christmas for Santa to still exist and to do his job. And so, you know, the Dashing,
basically Elf.
yeah, Dashing Through the Snow. There's like an idea for a 30-minute movie.
Oh no.
And
That's
so
special.
to get it to like an hour and 45 minutes, they had to stretch it out, and they had to kind of zig a little bit to stretch it out. But you kind of know where it's going anyways. You're just kind of like, okay, can we get there? Can we get there? Nope, we're gonna send you over in this direction. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever because we have to make an hour and 45-minute movie. So those are two movies that I watched: Candy Cane Lane, Dashing Through the Snow. If I went by the Eddie Murphy scale, Candy Cane Lane, A+, Dashing Through the Snow, like a C minus.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you took the hit for us on the Ludacris movie, because I probably would have watched it. Now, what I watched during Christmas would bore the hell out of most people, but I love Turner Classic Movies. So the classics like Holiday Inn, Christmas in Connecticut, all those types of movies, I can watch them every year, no problem. Usually because they're like 80 minutes, 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And you know, great acting, good stories. It's hard to watch some of these too, because again, you watch them and then you start Holiday Inn, and at the top of the screen it says, you know, rated TV, whatever, for smoking, drinking, and blackface. And you're like, oh no, okay, should I watch this movie? And then you get to that part and you're like, wow, this is awfully bad.
Yes.
But anyways, so you know, those are the types of movies that I watch but I love Christmas specials. So the Disney Prep and Landing series that they had probably about 15 years ago, I can watch that every year. Last night we watched The Muppets Letters to Santa.
Oh, wow.
Which is absolutely hilarious. It's on Disney Plus. It is so funny. Definitely one of those ones that is great for kids and adults, because you'll crack up at the stuff and the kids won't get it, but they'll enjoy the singing and everything else going on that's great in those. We're also super into baking championship, holiday baking championship. We love that. And now there's a new Master Chef Junior, which we love to watch. There's a new holiday series that's out that's like 3 or 4 episodes, and I think the first one was last night with Gordon Ramsay. So we kind of watch those. But I'm with you on the watching the movies over again. I could do that with only a select few movies. Christmas Vacation, Christmas with the Cranks, I could watch that every year. I don't know why, it makes me laugh. And then the third one is Trapped in Paradise. I could watch that. That's the Nicolas Cage, John Lovitz, and Dana Carvey. I could watch that every year, no problem. But when it comes to new movies, I'm always a little bit hesitant, because you're like, hey, there's some great, you know, classics that are out there, and I can watch classics, or I could jump into these. I don't know if you guys have seen the Santa Chronicles with Kurt Russell. And Goldie Hawn is Mrs. Claus, and Kurt Russell is Santa Claus.
I think Crystal watched that.
Okay.
It was either last year or the year before.
So last year, I think, was part 2.
Okay.
And then about 3 or 4 years ago was part 1. And those are great. Those are fun. I had a good time with those, because Santa is Kurt Russell is the cool hip Santa. So, you know, he's kind of like 60s Santa. So he's the cool guy, and he listens to rock and roll. But yeah, we haven't watched anything new this year. Last year we watched Spirited with Ryan Reynolds and Will Ferrell, and it was
Is it the Apple TV one?
Apple TV Plus. Highly recommend that. That one is really funny, really good, very heartwarming. But I do want to watch Jingle Jangle on Netflix. I've heard a lot of good stuff about that. Let me just look up the actors and actresses. That has been out for a couple of years. That is, let's see if I can do this without the sound blasting in my ear. That is Forrest Whitaker, Keegan Michael Key.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Hugh Bonneville. And I think it's also a musical. Anika Noni Rose.
I'll have to ask Crystal if she saw that one.
Felicia Rashad. There you go.
Because she's a big fan of Keegan Michael Key.
Okay, so she might have seen that one. That one came out a couple of years ago. It's 2020. It's about 2 hours long, but I think it's also a musical. But it looks really good. The effects in this one look pretty much top notch.
Oh,
so,
cool.
But that's been on my list for a while that we have not watched yet. But definitely getting to that. So,
all right. Well, we have one more show until Christmas. So if there's anything you watch between now and next Monday,
yes,
we'll talk about it at the end of next week's show. But the following week, Christmas is on Monday, so we'll have to postpone our show that week.
Okay, we'll figure out a day on that.
Yeah, maybe Tuesday, or depending on what our,
unless they sign Yamamoto on Christmas Day, and then you'll be hearing from us.
Well, Rod and I may have to do We Want Winners on Christmas evening because the Niners play Monday Night Football on that night. Yeah, that'll be one where wife goes to sleep, kids go to sleep, and I'm awake. Yeah. I'm like, okay, we might as well.
Yeah, sipping on your fortified Christmas wine, right? Yeah.
All right. Thank you for letting me get my frustrations out on this Ohtani situation. And Giants fans, I feel you. I know a lot of frustration, but we're gonna have to deal with it. We're gonna have to get through it. Just hope that Farhan. I know he's gonna probably sign a new deal here, and I think Melvin and him probably re-upped together. I think that was at least mentioned, but he's gotta go, and he's got to do the things that they brought him in to do. So this is a lot of responsibility on his end. He's got some work to do. Let's go, Farhan. Come on. We need some guys. Let's go. We need to put a good baseball team.
We don't want to talk about Ohtani anymore. This is going to be it. We shouldn't even talk about him after this episode. We're done. We're moving on. We're going to talk about Yamamoto, Bellinger, Slater, Yaz, the crew.
No Tani. All right.
No Tani.
All right. For Brad, I'm Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.
Peace.